Picture this. You're a marine biologist in 2024, scanning through underwater footage, when suddenly you see something that makes your blood run cold. An orca, the ocean's most intelligent predator, is swimming around with a dead salmon balanced perfectly on its head like some kind of twisted fashion statement. But here's the kicker. This exact same bizarre behavior mysteriously appeared in 1987, lasted for one summer, then vanished without a trace for 37 years. Now it's back. And what scientists are discovering about why these apex predators suddenly brought back this deadly trend will change everything you thought you knew about intelligence in the animal kingdom. The salmon hat phenomenon isn't just some random quirk. It's a window into a mind so advanced, so culturally sophisticated, that it's forcing researchers to completely rewrite what we understand about non-human intelligence. Because when a creature that can surgically extract great white shark livers decides to start wearing dead fish as accessories, you better believe there's something much deeper happening beneath those waves. In every corner of our planet's oceans, from the sun-baked tropics to the ice-crushing polar regions, lives a species so dominant that even humans pale in comparison to their global reach. They've earned names that would make horror movie villains jealous. Blackfish, whale killer, Grampus. But their scientific name reveals the truth that ancient civilizations already knew. Orcas orca, derived from Orcas, the Roman god of the underworld and death itself. These aren't just big dolphins playing around in the waves. These are the ocean's undisputed emperors, ruling with an intelligence so terrifying that it makes other apex predators look like mindless automatons. Watch what happens when an orcapod decides they want great white shark liver for dinner. They don't just attack randomly like some savage beast. Instead, they coordinate like a military strike team, surrounding their target with tactical precision that would make Navy SEALs jealous. One orca rams the great white from the side with bone-crushing force, stunning the legendary predator instantly. Then comes the part that still gives marine biologists nightmares. They flip the shark upside down with surgical accuracy, inducing something called tonic immobility that essentially paralyzes the great white and drowns it alive. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. They don't even eat the whole shark. These underwater surgeons carefully extract just the liver with precision that puts human doctors to shame, leaving the rest of the carcass to sink into the abyss like some kind of ocean serial killer signature. The psychological warfare doesn't end there. Great whites that somehow survive an orca encounter don't just swim away. They evacuate their entire hunting territory and stay gone for up to a full year. Imagine being so terrifying that your mere presence causes other apex predators to abandon their homes for months. That's the level of fear orcas command in their underwater kingdom. But what's even more mind-blowing is how they've learned to exploit the specific weaknesses of every creature they hunt. From corralling fish with coordinated bubble nets to creating artificial waves that wash seals right off their ice platforms. But that wasn't the whole story. What if everything we thought we knew about these ocean overlords was just scratching the surface? What if their true origins were so bizarre that it would completely shatter your perception of marine evolution? 50 million years ago, long before the first human walked upright, a wolf-sized creature called Pakicetus prowled the edges of ancient shorelines. This land-dwelling predator had 4 legs, fur, and hunted like any other terrestrial carnivore. But something extraordinary was about to happen. Something so dramatic that it would create the most feared predator our oceans have ever known. Over the next 8 million years, some descendants of this primitive wolf decided to trade their terrestrial hunting grounds for the endless expanse of the sea. This wasn't just adaptation. This was a complete biological revolution. Legs transformed into powerful flippers, bodies became living torpedoes, and their hunting instincts evolved to master an entirely different realm. But here's what will blow your mind. Buried deep inside every modern orca's flippers are the bone structures of arms, wrists, and fingers. X-ray an orca's flipper, and you'll see the ghostly outline of what was once a land mammal's front leg, now repurposed into an underwater propulsion system that can launch 10 tons of predator through the water at highway speeds. The vestigial pelvic bones hidden in their bodies tell an even stranger story. Bones that serve absolutely no purpose today, but stand as monuments to their terrestrial past. These evolutionary relics prove that the ocean's most dominant predator was once a land animal that made the most successful career change in the history of life on Earth. From wolf-sized shoreline scavenger to school bus-sized oceanic emperor in less than 10 million years. A transformation so rapid, it defies everything we thought we knew about evolutionary timescales. Today's orcas are living submarines equipped with biological weapons that put human engineering to shame. Males can stretch over 30 feet long and weigh as much as a fully loaded school bus. Yet they can accelerate through water with such explosive force that they've been recorded launching themselves 15 feet into the air. Their bite force measures 19,000 pounds per square inch, nearly 5 times more powerful than a great white shark and capable of crushing a small car. But raw power is just the beginning of their terrifying capabilities. Their bodies are perfectly engineered killing machines, with hydrodynamic shapes that slice through water resistance, like it doesn't exist. When an orca decides to hunt, it becomes a living missile that can reach speeds of 35 miles per hour underwater, fast enough to catch almost anything in the ocean, and powerful enough to ram boats hard enough to sink them. But what makes them truly unstoppable isn't their individual prowess. It's how they've weaponized the most dangerous force in nature: collective intelligence. And what happened next would shock everyone who thought they understood predator behavior. The first time researchers witnessed coordinated orca hunting, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. These weren't just animals following instinct. They were watching military-grade tactical operations unfold in real time. Pods of up to 50 individuals moving in perfect synchronization, each member playing a specific role in elaborate hunting strategies that took years to master and required split-second timing to execute. What they were observing was proof that orcas had evolved something that no other predator possessed: a complex communication system sophisticated enough to coordinate group tactics that would make human special forces units jealous. The breakthrough came when researchers finally started listening to what was happening beneath the waves during these hunts. The underwater soundscape exploded with an orchestra of clicks, whistles, and calls that revealed a communication network more complex than anything science had ever documented in the animal kingdom. These weren't random noises. They were watching a language in action, complete with dialects, grammar, and cultural variations that differed from pod to pod like human civilizations, separated by continents. Their echolocation system operates like biological sonar on steroids, sending out click trains at frequencies up to 60 kilohertz, with sound levels exceeding 220 decibels. To put that in perspective, that's louder than a jet engine at takeoff, focused into a beam so precise it can differentiate between species of fish based on the acoustic signature of their swim bladders from over 500 feet away in murky water. Chinook salmon swimming in waters shared with 5 other salmon species don't stand a chance. Orcas can acoustically identify and target just the fish they want from a buffet of options spread across thousands of square miles. But echolocation is just their long-range detection system. When they need to coordinate close-quarters tactical maneuvers, they switch to high-pitched whistles that don't travel far underwater, essentially creating a private communication channel that allows them to plan attacks without alerting their prey. It's like watching a SWAT team coordinate through encrypted radio channels, except these radios evolved naturally over millions of years. Then there are the long-range calls, vocalizations as loud as jet engines that can travel for miles underwater, allowing separated pod members to coordinate massive hunting operations across vast distances. These aren't genetically programmed sounds like bird songs. Every single call is learned, practiced, and passed down through generations like cultural traditions. When orca calves are born, their first vocalizations are just random screams that bear no resemblance to adult communication. Only through years of listening and practice do they master their pod's unique acoustic signature. Scientists are now using artificial intelligence to decode these underwater conversations, hoping to create the first interspecies translation system in history. The implications are staggering. We might be on the verge of actually talking to another intelligent species, one that's been having complex conversations in our oceans for millions of years, while we had no idea what they were saying. But that communication system serves a purpose even more fascinating than coordinated hunting. But that wasn't the most disturbing discovery. What researchers found next revealed that orcas aren't just intelligent predators. There's something far more complex and unsettling. Hidden in the acoustic analysis of orca communications was a discovery that changed everything marine biologists thought they knew about animal behavior. Each pod doesn't just have its own hunting techniques. They have their own languages, complete with unique dialects that haven't changed for decades. These aren't just different accents. They're completely distinct communication systems that separate orca communities as definitively as human cultures separated by language barriers. Resident pods living off the coast of British Columbia have developed calls that begin with low pulse rate bursts, followed by narrow band tones that rise from 3 kHz to over 8 kHz. Meanwhile, other resident pods in the same waters use completely different vocalizations, low-frequency rising tones followed by lower pitch pulses that suddenly shift to high-frequency tones before ending with low-pitched bursts. These acoustic signatures are so distinct that researchers can identify which pod they're listening to just from a few seconds of recorded calls. But the difference between resident and transient orcas reveals something even more disturbing about their social complexity. Transient pods, the ocean's most elusive and mysterious orcas, live like underwater phantoms. They travel thousands of miles between Alaska and California in small, tight-knit groups of just 3 members, staying submerged for extended periods and hugging coastlines while remaining almost invisible to human observation. When they hunt marine mammals, like sea lions, they do so in complete silence, not even using echolocation to avoid detection. The few calls transients do make are haunting low-frequency vocalizations that sound like whale ghosts communicating across vast underwater distances. These nomadic orcas refuse to interact with resident pods even when they share the same waters, maintaining complete social isolation like underwater societies that have declared eternal separation from their cousins. What makes this cultural division truly mind-blowing is that it's not geography creating these differences. It's choice. Resident and transient orcas live in the same oceans, sometimes just miles apart, yet they maintain completely separate languages, hunting techniques, social structures, and behavioral traditions. They've essentially created underwater civilizations as distinct as human cultures, but based entirely on learned behaviors passed down through generations rather than genetic programming. These cultural differences run so deep that scientists believe transient and resident orcas are actually evolving into separate species, not because physical barriers separated them, but because their cultural choices created reproductive isolation. It's the documented case of culture driving evolution in real time, proving that orca intelligence is sophisticated enough to literally reshape their own evolutionary destiny. But the true extent of their cultural sophistication wasn't revealed until researchers witnessed the most disturbing hunting tradition ever documented in the animal kingdom. The beaches of Peninsula Valdez in Argentina became the stage for a behavior so shocking that the first scientists to witness it thought they were hallucinating. It was 1985 when researchers first saw something that defied every rule of marine mammal behavior. Orcas intentionally launching themselves onto dry land to snatch sea lions directly from the shore. This wasn't an accident or a feeding frenzy gone wrong. This was a calculated, practiced hunting technique that required years of training to master and split-second timing to survive. The attack begins when conditions are perfect. High tide with calm seas creating the ideal wave patterns. The hunting orca positions itself in deeper water, reading the incoming waves like a surfer studying the perfect break. Then comes the terrifying charge. The orca rides the advancing wave like a 10-ton missile, using the water's momentum to launch itself directly onto the beach, where sea lions rest in false security. The physics of this maneuver are insane. A creature that weighs as much as 2 elephants must calculate wave timing, beach angle, and prey position with mathematical precision, while hurtling through shallow water at deadly speeds. One miscalculation means getting permanently stranded on dry land, which for an orca means certain death. Yet these underwater acrobats pull off this life-threatening stunt with such precision that they can grab a specific sea lion from a group and use the next wave to carry themselves back to safety. But here's what makes this behavior truly disturbing. Only 13 out of 30 orcas in this region have mastered the technique. The other 17 tried to learn but failed the training process. This isn't instinctual behavior that all orcas naturally possess. This is a learned skill so difficult that most individuals can't acquire it despite years of practice. The training process reveals intelligence that borders on the supernatural. Young orcas spend years practicing with adult females who teach them with patience that would put human instructors to shame. The students practice beaching themselves repeatedly without attempting to catch any prey, just learning how their bodies feel out of water and how to time the waves. Some never get comfortable with the sensation of their full body weight pressing down outside their aquatic environment and abandon the training entirely. The successful students graduate to using props like seaweed during practice runs, learning to grab objects while beached before ever attempting to catch live prey. Even after mastering the physical technique, their first attempts at catching actual sea lions require adult assistance to safely return to deeper water. It's a teaching system so sophisticated that it proves orcas have developed educational institutions more advanced than those of any other non-human species. This cultural transmission of deadly skills through apprenticeship programs explains why orcas have become the most adaptable predators on Earth. Every pod develops specialized hunting techniques perfectly suited to their local environment, then passes those techniques down through generations while continuously innovating new methods. They're not just predators. They're underwater universities constantly expanding their curriculum of death. Yet none of this cultural complexity would be possible without the biological supercomputer that makes it all happen. The orca brain is a biological impossibility that challenges everything neuroscientists thought they knew about intelligence. Weighing in at nearly 15 pounds, it's the second largest brain in the animal kingdom, but size is just the beginning of its mysterious capabilities. When researchers first examined orca brain tissue under microscopes, they discovered something that shouldn't exist, a level of neural complexity that surpasses almost every other creature on Earth. The surface of an orca's brain is folded and wrinkled in patterns so intricate, they look like alien technology. This folding, called gyrification, increases the total surface area of brain tissue available for processing information. While humans have a gyrification index of 2.2, orcas clock in at 5.7, the most folded brain structure ever documented. More folds mean more processing power, more data storage, and faster computational speeds packed into the same skull space. But the most disturbing discovery was hidden deep inside their neural architecture. The insular cortex, the brain region responsible for consciousness, self-awareness, empathy, and emotional intelligence, is massively overdeveloped in orcas. This brain region allows them to be aware of their own existence, understand the emotional states of other orcas, and experience complex feelings like grief, joy, and compassion. In other words, orcas may be emotionally intelligent in ways that rival or exceed human capabilities. Scientists decided to test just how self-aware these oceanic giants really were using the mirror test, the gold standard for measuring consciousness in animals. They secretly marked orca skin with different colored compounds and observed how the whales reacted when they saw their reflection. The results were unsettling. Not only did the orcas immediately notice the markings, but they became completely obsessed with examining themselves in ways they had never done before. They blew bubbles at their reflections, bobbed their heads, stuck out their tongues, and twisted their bodies to get better views of the markings. These behaviors lasted far longer and occurred far more frequently than any previous mirror interactions. The orcas weren't just recognizing themselves. They were fascinated by their own appearance, demonstrating a level of self-awareness that puts them in the same cognitive category as humans, great apes, and dolphins. This combination of massive brain size, extreme neural folding, And advanced self-awareness creates a creature whose intelligence may operate on levels we're only beginning to understand. They don't just learn from experience. They contemplate their own existence, plan for future scenarios, and make decisions based on complex emotional and social considerations that span decades of relationships within their pods. Recent observations have revealed behaviors so advanced that researchers are questioning whether orcas might actually be more intelligent than humans in certain areas. They've been caught on camera cooperating not just with their own species, but forming temporary alliances with humpback whales, sometimes their own prey, to coordinate joint hunting operations against schools of herring. The strategic thinking required to temporarily ally with a potential meal to increase hunting success demonstrates cognitive flexibility that borders on the supernatural. But all of this research into orca intelligence was about to reveal something that would connect directly back to that mysterious salmon hat behavior that started this entire investigation. The salmon hat phenomenon that mysteriously reappeared in 2024 after a 37-year absence represents something far more significant than quirky animal behavior. It's proof that orcas possess cultural memory and social trends that span multiple generations. When researchers dug deeper into the original 1987 outbreak, they discovered that the behavior started with a single female orca who began carrying dead salmon on her head for no apparent reason. Within weeks, other members of her pod copied the behavior, and soon it spread to neighboring pods like a viral social media trend. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the salmon hat fad vanished completely. For 37 years, not a single orca was documented engaging in this behavior anywhere in the world. Marine biologists assumed it was just a temporary cultural quirk that had been forgotten. They were dead wrong. The 2024 resurgence began in the exact same region where the original outbreak occurred. But here's what makes it truly unsettling. Many of the orcas participating in the new salmon hat trend weren't even alive during the 1987 episode. Worse, this means the behavior was somehow preserved in the pod's cultural memory and passed down through generations who had never seen it performed. It's like a human fashion trend from the 1980s suddenly coming back into style, except the people wearing it learned about it through stories from their grandparents rather than seeing old photos. What researchers are now realizing is that this behavior might be a form of cultural experimentation. Orcas testing new ideas, abandoning them, then reviving them decades later when conditions change. The salmon hat serves no obvious survival purpose, requires extra energy to maintain, and makes hunting more difficult. Yet, orcas choose to do it anyway, suggesting they engage in behaviors purely for social or psychological reasons that have nothing to do with survival. This cultural resurrection proves that orca societies maintain detailed historical records of past behaviors, social experiments, and cultural innovations across multiple generations. They're not just intelligent, they're historians, archiving behavioral knowledge and selectively reviving old traditions when they decide the time is right. It's a level of cultural sophistication that was previously thought to exist only in human civilizations. The implications are staggering. If orcas can preserve and revive behaviors across 4 decades, what other cultural knowledge are they maintaining in their social archives? How many hunting techniques, communication methods, and behavioral innovations are stored in pod memories, waiting to be brought back when conditions warrant their return? The salmon hat mystery reveals that we're not just sharing our planet with intelligent animals. We're sharing it with creatures who possess their own civilizations, complete with cultural traditions, historical records, and social trends that operate on timescales that span multiple human lifetimes. They're maintaining underwater societies with complexity that rivals our own, making collective decisions about cultural practices based on criteria we're only beginning to understand. What started as a bizarre observation about fish-wearing sea mammals has uncovered evidence that orcas are operating on levels of intelligence and cultural sophistication that challenge our understanding of consciousness itself. They're not just apex predators, they're ocean philosophers, cultural historians, and social experimenters whose minds work in ways that might actually exceed human cognitive abilities in areas we're only starting to explore. The next time you see an orca, remember that you're not just looking at a marine mammal. You're observing a member of an underwater civilization that has been conducting complex cultural experiments, maintaining historical records, and making collective decisions about social trends for millions of years. They've been watching us just as intently as we've been watching them, and they might understand far more about our world than we ever imagined possible. That's a wrap on today's wild journey. But here at the Zoo-phoria Show, we're just getting started exploring nature's most incredible stories. Subscribe if you want to keep discovering the shocking, hilarious, and downright unbelievable truths about the animals sharing our planet. Your next favorite animal fact is just one click away.